So this is a new thing I'm doing where I'm going to feature authors from time to time. Our first is a New York Times best-selling author. I love her latest book, Sing You Home. Please welcome Jodi Picoult. Hi, Jodi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
So we've never met in person before.
I know. It's exciting.
I got an early copy of the book and loved it so much that I said, hey, I'd like to maybe try to make a movie out of this. And so we've spoken a few times about that.
How happy am I?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. And but I want to know more about you. First of all, before we talk about the book. So you started writing. Did you go to college to be a writer?
Yeah, I did. I actually went to Princeton. I went there because they had an undergrad creative writing program. I studied with some great authors, and you know that's probably the only reason I'm here today. Honestly.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's nice that you had good influences.
Yeah,
I'm sure. And so you started. You wrote your book like right away, right out of college, or what was your first book?
Well, I didn't. I actually went to go work on Wall Street until the stock market crashed, which was a great thing because they gave me a severance package and I moved, which I enjoyed.
That's nice.
And I actually wrote the whole time after that for 2 years, but it was about 2 years after I left school that my first book started to get picked up by an agent and then published.
And that was how long ago?
1992 was my first book.
And were you married then or at the time or anything?
I actually had just had my first son when my first book was published. So I've either had a baby or a book every year since then.
So how in the world, because I know new mothers, how in the world do you have time to write a book while you have a newborn?
It's not easy. I used to write when Barney was on TV or when the kids weren't hitting each other over the head with a sippy cup, or I used to take my laptop to the nursery school parking lot and type on my steering wheel. I mean, any 15 minutes I had, I would sit down and I would write. And then my kids went to organized school, and that's a miraculous thing because I have 8 hours a day to write.
Right. So, well, you have 8 hours, but I think as being with someone who actually wrote one book anyway, it's hard to kind of, do you discipline yourself when you write a book? Do you sit down like a 9-to-5 job and say, I'm sitting here until a certain amount of time? I
do. I usually go up to my office at about 7:30 in the morning when the kids go to school, and I stay there until about 3:30 when I magically turn into mom again. And it's a job. Sometimes my husband brings me coffee, which is awesome, and sometimes he doesn't, and I just starve all day. But, you know, I sit there for 8 hours and I work. It's a job, but it's a job I really like.
And how do you come up with, how many books have you written?
18.
18 books. And how many have debuted at #1?
I think it's like 5.
4 or 5, right?
Like
yes.
I don't know.
Okay. And so, but how do you come up with, because what an imagination you have to have all these different stories in your head and still be a mom and still have time to raise kids. How do you come up with a germ of an idea and then do beginning, middle, and end, or do you just write and see what happens?
It's usually a what-if question that I can't answer, and it feels like a splinter in my brain. You know how you keep feeling for a splinter to see if it's still there? Well, if I keep thinking about an idea, and if it keeps me up at night, it's probably a really good idea for a book. And if 2 or 3 weeks goes by, characters pop up like little mushrooms, and they take the story away from me and just begin to walk through a plot.
And when you come up with the dialogue of all these different characters in your head, do you kind of feel crazy? Because I mean, I just feel like you have so many different characters that you're just really speaking for. They're different personalities.
I always say that writing is successful schizophrenia because I get paid to hear voices.
Right,
you know?
right,
but
right.
I do. I mean, that's really what it sounds like. They're all talking in my head, and I just write them down.
And then I wonder too, when you're writing a novel, is it like a painting? Do you know exactly when it's done, or do you kind of think? Like sometimes, like in my stand-up, I think, you know, I look back and go, oh, I should have done this instead of this. I should have had this line. Do you sometimes think that there was different dialogue you could have had?
Not by the time I get to the end of the book, because I usually cut and, you know I'm done with it, and then I'll go back and revise it. But I have a pretty good sense of when a book is done. It's usually when you're changing less than 2% of the whole manuscript. And, you know, you got to move on because there's new ideas and new characters coming.
Right. And then so you, how long does it usually take you to write a book?
It takes me 9 months. It's a little embarrassing. My husband ties a congratulations on the new baby balloon to the back of my chair when I finish one.
You think that's long, 9 months?
No, it's just embarrassing.
But
no, it's quick.
That's very fast.
Yeah.
That's very fast. Okay, so you come up with the idea for Sing You Home. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, it was something that I really wanted to write about for a long time. It was in part about gay rights in America. I think that's the last set of human rights that we haven't granted in this country, and having gay friends and relatives, it's always kind of bugged me, and I wondered why. And I was beginning to explore that through a story when something happened that kind of changed the direction of the book for me. My oldest son, Kyle, who was 17 at the time, came out to me and his dad. It was not a shock. I knew Kyle was gay when he was 3 years old. But, oh, look, there he is.
And he told you when you were writing this book?
Yeah, it was in his college essay. You know, the application essay, you write a personal statement.
Did he know you were writing a book about this subject matter?
Yeah, but he still thinks he inspired it. It's okay. He can think that.
All right. So he came out to you while you were writing this.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, that really changed for me what the book was about, because it wasn't just a philosophical journey as a writer. It was me having a mission as a mom, because by the time that he gets married and wants to have kids, like the characters in the book, I don't want him to have to jump through hoops.
Right. Well, the book, because when I was preparing for this today, I was like, I don't want people to know before they read the book that it's, because it surprises you what it's about.
Yeah.
And then it surprises you again. It goes in so many...
It's about a lot of things.
It's about a lot of things. It's about a married couple at first, a husband and a wife. That's what the story begins with, a husband and a wife.
Right.
And then it goes into all these different directions.
Right.
And then it becomes very controversial.
Right.
And you, I think, portray both sides very, very fairly. Well, I think the book is fantastic, and I think that you're an amazing writer.
Thank you.
And I just I love the characters that you've created in here, and the places that you take us to question for anybody to look at and say, you know, what would I do in that situation, and what side would I be on, and what is the right thing to do in this situation, because it really comes down to what is the right thing to do.
And what's a family today?
Right.
What really makes a family?
Yeah.
And that's a really important question to ask. A lot of people have opinions, but I don't think they ever ask themselves why their opinions are what they are. And it's sometimes nice to hear all different sides of the equation and then reevaluate your opinion.
Have you always been this open-minded, or is it something that has grown in you? Because a lot of people have a certain way of thinking of what a family is, or what you know, what should be, or have you ever been a person that didn't understand it?
No, I mean, I think that, you know, my family was always really accepting, and I grew up that way, but I probably have become more accepting as I've gotten older. I just, I mean, I just can't be right all the time, right? Someone has to be right sometimes. So, but you know, I love diving into really tough issues, because I think for me it's a lot more fun to thrash them around in a book. So.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting book, and also a portion of the proceeds are going to go to the Trevor Project, which is a great organization. You should tell people what that is.
Yeah, well, you know, Kyle, when he came out to us, he had this fantastic response from us, and not all kids get that response. And the Trevor Project, which is actually something you've supported too, which I am so grateful for, they are an organization that provides support to teens who are LGBTQ and who don't have that support. They offer a suicide hotline, all kinds of support groups, and they're saving a lot of lives. So there's a place you can go to and get an autographed copy of Sing You Home, and a portion of the proceeds go to the Trevor Project.
From the autographed copy, that's right. All right, well, Jodi, it was so nice meeting you in person, and it was very interesting reading the book and then calling you and saying, I'd like to do this, and I'm so happy that it's well received and people are reading it like crazy, because I think it's going to cause a lot of conversations.
I can't wait for the movie.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And everybody in the audience is going home with a copy of this book. All right. Thank you, Jodi.
Sure, thank you.